Hey brothers and sisters, welcome back to your girl's channel. So I was scrolling through TikTok and I seen this post of this girl who had lost her sister, and it turned out that her sister had gotten a BBL surgery. She had flown overseas to get this procedure done, and she died while she was getting this surgery. So now this made me, curious to know, how often do people die from this surgery? And now, before I do get into this video, I do have one little tiny request. I ask that you like the video, and since you're here, subscribe and let's fellowship. Chat with your girl and let me know down in the comments once you're done watching the video on what your thoughts are regarding this type of plastic surgery. So with that said, let's get started with today's discussion. Evita Sarmonica, who was a 29-year-old natural beauty queen from Queensland, decided to fly overseas to Mexico for what she thought was the makeover of her life, but instead it turned into a botched BBL surgery from hell.
My name is Andrea. I'm 35 years old and I'm from Queensland. My beautiful sister died here in Mexico last year all alone. I flew over to investigate what had happened, and today I'm here to confront the man who watched her die.
A BBL, also known as a Brazilian butt lift, is when the fat is taken from the midsection via liposuction and it's injected into the rear end. Although Evita looked like a beauty queen, she still struggled with insecurities, especially pertaining to her body, and this made her want to get plastic surgery to fix it. The surgery was performed by Dr. Victor Ramirez.
Hola, soy el Dr. Víctor Ramírez, médico cirujano.
Dr. Ramirez is a celebrated plastic surgeon. He's a doctor with money, status, and influence. However, he has left a trail of bodies from his operating table. Now, this doctor was promoted on government brochures on medical tourism. The brochures and the websites look professional. You guys, you cannot just go by what they post on their social media accounts and just believe it that it's their work. I've heard of instances where some doctors had before and after pictures of women that they didn't even operate on, nor did they even have the consent to use their photos. What these scammers do is they showcase these surgeries as top notch for half the cost. That is what makes these types of surgeries overseas so attractive.
Where were you when you got the phone call?
She just said, Evita's dead, Andrea. I said, what? What? And I looked at Sophie, like Sophie was looking at me, and I just said, come. I said, just come. She's like, what? Like, I couldn't express. I was like, what are you saying? What? She goes, Evita is dead. Just like that. Just hoping that, okay, if I go, I'll find her and I'll bring her back home. But going to see Mum, that was, I was like, how do I tell my mum?
She said that Evita was in Mexico. So I said, it's impossible. Evita is in Los Angeles. And Andrea said, Mom, Evita, she died.
And she just started to scream, no. And then the chaos begins.
Through Evita's death from her botched BBL surgery, the police forensic department in Mexico did an autopsy, and then they contacted the family and stated that the cause of death was due to a heart attack. The family found this suspicious because Evita was very healthy. She was young and she was fit before the surgery.
This insistence on cremating her body. They want to cremate her body. And I was like, okay, yes, just let me get things organized. I was like, okay, I'll help get the body over. And then I'm like, you're gonna send my sister's body back in a coffin without letting me know exactly what went on? And I was like, no, something is wrong.
Evita's sister, Andrea, took a flight out to Mexico and requested a second independent autopsy. And the results were astonishing. It was a complete 180 from the forensics department autopsy reports of a heart attack. On this report, it showed that Evita's lungs were punctured 5 times.
I knew that something was wrong. And then when the forensic came, she goes, Andrea, they perforated her lungs 5 times.
Her lungs were punctured
5 times. She didn't die from a pulmonary embolism. He punctured her lung and she couldn't, the holes couldn't hold her air.
Evita's cause of death was internal bleeding from consecutive perforation to the lungs caused by the liposuction cannula.
Wow. Amazing. This had to be a very unusual case of lung perforation leading to hemorrhage. So this is in keeping with a severely inexperienced surgeon. I've done over 1,000 liposuction cases, and I can tell you to puncture someone's lung with a cannula, you'd actually have to be in a completely different angle. So the cannula has to be facing down, and you'd have to go through a number of connective tissue and structures to get to the lung. So I'd say a lot of force.
Not once, not twice, but 5 times.
It's upsetting for me because I can now see why this girl passed away. To see a young Australian girl to go overseas to get this type of treatment, it's heartbreaking.
The doctor tried to cover his tracks by falsifying the reports and stating that it was a heart attack so that this would look unrelated to his doing.
I have to hear the stories. I have to call the women and hear their tears of how he's deformed their bodies.
Just how many victims are we talking about here?
7 women that have reached directly out to me, that he has mutilated them. They're now psychologically damaged. 3 deaths that we know of, direct evidence. Obviously, Evita is one of those. I've spoken to the other 2 families. Another 3.
Who did this is still operating even today.
It's not surprising, it's shocking. He should not be operating medicine anywhere in the world.
What would happen to a doctor in Australia if he did this?
He would be charged with manslaughter. He'd lose his license to practice medicine and much more. A surgeon that brings misery and grief to people's lives day in, day out is not a surgeon, is not a doctor, is a butcher.
Now, Andrea went to the plastic surgeon's office, which at the time, that surgeon was still operating on people.
That's right.
Dr. Ramirez, I'd like to talk to you about the death of an Australian girl, Evita Sarmonica.
Doctor.
This is her sister. She's got some questions for you. Andrea?
I'm Evita's sister, doctor. Why aren't you telling the truth? Doctor, míreme. Doctor, míreme. Hábleme un minuto. Doctor, este es un minuto.
Any question?
Doctor, míreme. Doctor, míreme. Es solamente 5 minutos. My sister is dead. And she died in his hands. And he's responsible.
The case was finally opened to the federal court and he was charged with homicide. And as of now, his practice is closed. Now, Terry Dubrow, who is a famous Hollywood plastic surgeon, he's most famously known as the co-host for the show Botched. And the show's premise is basically where people have had botched plastic surgery, so they go to him as the one to help fix what the other doctor didn't do right in the first place. Because he's fixing botched surgeries, he's definitely well trained in his career. He knows a thing or two about how these surgeries are supposed to be performed or the dangers of doing these incorrectly. And he has stated publicly that BBLs is the plastic surgery that has the highest fatality rate and the highest risk. Now, some people may think that traveling overseas is the problem. They think, well, if you get a board certified surgeon from the United States and you pay however much money it costs, right? It'll be much more expensive to do it in the US than overseas. And people think that that would eliminate the risk. If you get it done in the US, you should be fine. Well, that's not the case. No risk is totally eliminated with these types of surgeries. A board-certified surgeon from Mia Aesthetics at a Miami plastic surgery clinic had performed a BBL on Danielle Placencia, a 28-year-old mother of 3. And right after the procedure, Placencia was rushed to the hospital and then pronounced dead.
That was the last picture she sent me before she went in.
On May 10th, her daughter texted her right before surgery. She says she got the emergency phone call 2 hours later.
All I remember is falling to the floor. That's the last thing that I remember. I remember I had no strength in my body.
Her daughter died of a fat embolism. That's where a piece of fat gets into a patient's bloodstream and causes them to stop breathing.
I was like, oh my God, my daughter died like that.
The NBC6 investigators found she's one of more than a dozen women who died after undergoing the same procedure in South Florida, different doctors and clinics.
She's in the picture of a dozen or more. This is happening to many girls.
A family friend started this online petition, calling for change to help prevent more deaths.
Think about it. If another girl goes through it and passes away, they're not the ones that are going to suffer. The family members are the ones that are going to stay suffering.
I show you these clips to warn you of the dangers revolving plastic surgery. It is not necessary to go under the knife and possibly alter your life or lose it, since your family would be the one left to pick up the pieces. They're the ones that would have to suffer the loss if something were to happen to you. Think twice before going under the knife. There are so many ways to lose weight or to get a desired outcome for your body. There are bodybuilding coaches who do this for a living and can work with you on sculpting your body the way that you desire. And overall, I do want to end this message on one very important note. Working on your outer appearance should never be more important than working on your inner appearance. It is far better to work on beautifying the person underneath the skin and becoming the intangible and characteristics of a godly person. 1 Peter 3:4 says that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. Even the most skilled surgeon cannot stop the hands of time. Eventually, all surgeries will lead to the same results, and that is aging. Anything lifted will sag, and anything altered will eventually wrinkle. I want to thank you guys for watching and showing your girl love. I hope you learned a thing or two from this video. And until next time, God bless you.